guys, and welcome to Odds on Premier League. After an exciting Boxing Day with Liverpool drawing at home, Premier League is not stopping, and we have the next match day with us. We are going to analyze everything with Tom Williams. But I also want to know your opinion, so please leave a comment below in the comment section and you will have the chance to win a £10 free bet with Novibet. Just leave a comment and you will participate in the draw. And do not forget to click on the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to our channel and click on the bell to get all the notifications. And now let's go on with the show. We lived an exciting Boxing Day, but only one day after we have the 16th match day of the Premier League, and we are going to analyze everything with Tom Williams. Hello, Tom.
Hi, Eduardo.
And Merry Christmas again. So, the players are not resting, neither do we. So, let's start with the first game we have on Monday. We have Crystal Palace, Leicester City. Crystal Palace, probably one of the worst teams in this Boxing Day. They lost 3-0 to Aston Villa. Not only that, but they played all the second half with one player more. And remember that they also were thrashed 7-0 with by Liverpool in the previous week. So 4 games with no victories, and we know how strong is Leicester City on the road. At home they struggle, but I guess the Foxes are very happy with the result. 2-2 with Man United, with that equalizer scored by Vardy. Tom, the question is, these odds of 2.10 are good enough for Leicester City? Would you back them?
Yeah, I think Leicester are clear favourites here. As you say, on the one hand, you've got Palace's very poor form, 10 goals conceded, no goals scored in their last 2 matches, and more generally, their home form has been poor this season. Only 1 win in 6 matches at Selhurst Park, and that's something that we've seen from Palace for quite a while now, that they are generally better on the road than they are at home. Similar to Leicester, whose away form has been exceptional. They've only failed to win 1 of their 7 away games so far this season. 1 away at Spurs last time out, very impressive performance. So yeah, I think it makes sense to back Leicester here. And I think the fact that they are such an effective team away from home means that they should win this one relatively comfortably. So I might be looking at a bet such as Leicester winning both halves. You can get odds of 6.5 on that outcome on Oddspedia. And I think given the form that Leicester have been in and the way that Palace have been letting goals in over the last week or so, I think a relatively straightforward Leicester victory looks like the most likely outcome here.
Yeah, if you think Leicester is going to win comfortably here at Selhurst Park, even Leicester City Asian handicap -1, we have now on oddspedia.com odds at 3.0, so that's also a very good option. Very favorite Leicester City at Selhurst Park. Also is favorite Chelsea playing against Aston Villa, although this is a very tricky one. Probably 1 month ago we were talking about Chelsea fighting for the title. Now we are not even sure if they are going to fight for the Champions League positions, although they should. And they got a terrible defeat at the Emirates. We didn't expect that. And actually in the last 4 games, 3 defeats for the Blues, so they need to win this one. But Aston Villa, we just said it, how they beat comfortably Crystal Palace with a really good performance again of Grealish, and they are in good form, Tom. So in the last 4 games, 3 victories, only 1 draw for Aston Villa. Tricky one, no? I would say to trust Chelsea, especially with the odds that we are seeing now, 1.73.
Very tricky, and I think what's happened to Chelsea in the last few weeks has shown just how close things are in the Premier League this season. You go back a few weeks and Chelsea looked like potential title contenders. They were stringing together victories and clean sheets, and all of a sudden, as you say, 3 defeats in 4 games and they're down in 8th in the table. Conversely, you look at a team like Everton, who we'll go on to talk about in a moment, who've put a great run of form together and have shot up to 2nd in the table. So that shows what a dynamic championship we're dealing with this season. I'm not sure I'd be all that confident backing Chelsea in this one. They have struggled of late. And Villa's form has been really impressive since that postponed game against Newcastle, which gave them a couple of weeks off. They've been really impressive. 4 games without defeat, 3 wins, 1 draw, no goals conceded in that period. And coming off the back of 2 pretty impressive one-sided wins against West Brom and against Palace. They've only dropped 3 points away from home this season. They've only conceded 2 goals away from home this season. Villa are another one of these teams who really thrive on the road. It sounds like Chelsea are going to make changes, but don't have a huge margin for error or huge room for manoeuvre, rather, given the fact that they're already missing players. So I think I'd be more inclined to back a draw in this one than a Chelsea win.
All right, we have the draw right now is paid for 33. So of course it's always good odds, even if you want to back Aston Villa. You were talking about Everton. They face Man City in the best game of this match day. Everton, Man City at Goodison Park, and it's the other side of the coin. 1 month ago, we were saying how Ancelotti's men were going down and down. They were a little bit disappointing, but they've been impressive so far. The last 4 games were all victories. They conceded only 1 goal. They struggled in Boxing Day to beat Sheffield United, but they made the job. And now they face City, who are also getting better. They beat Newcastle. They beat also Southampton without conceding, but they are not being impressive. I think at least they are not conceding many goals. So here I'm very, very also surprised to see the odds. Tom, Man City's victory is only 1.55. So probably the value is backing Everton on some Asian handicap here.
Yeah, I'd go along with that. I mean, I think those odds would have been appropriate for City going to Everton in one of the last 3 seasons, perhaps, but I don't think they really reflect where City are currently and also where Everton are currently. City on this decent run of form, 6 games unbeaten, 4 wins, 2 draws, but they're not really putting teams to the sword. A lot of these wins have been quite laboured wins by 1 or 2 goals here and there. And Everton have turned a corner completely. I mean, as you say, 4 consecutive wins and impressive wins. They've beaten Chelsea, they've beaten Leicester, beaten Arsenal, and then a hard-fought win away at Sheffield United in their most recent fixture. So yeah, I don't see City strolling to victory in this one. I think it's going to be quite a close game. I would be, again, more inclined to back a draw. You know how much I love a 1-1 scoreline. It feels like that sort of game. You can get odds of 9 on Oddspedia on a 1-1 draw in this. And I think that's the sort of game we're looking at. I think City's, the fact that City aren't firing on all cylinders, the fact that Everton are in a good bit of form and aren't letting goals in means I think this will be quite a close one.
I really like the odds here. Everton, Asian handicap +1. We have odds 2.52, so we win our bet if Everton draws or they win the game, and even if they lose only for 1 goal, so a short margin for Man City, we get our money back. So I think these are very good odds if we all think that Everton can fight Man City and get something out of Goodison Park. On Tuesday, we have maybe even a relegation battle game. Brighton Arsenal, although Arsenal they bounced back and they got a very important victory against Chelsea, especially after also that very cruel defeat in the Carabao Cup. So they have now 17 points, 4 more than Brighton, who drew against West Ham, but they took the lead twice. They are drawing. The last 3 games were draws, but they actually need a victory to get out of the red zone. They are still very close to Fulham. Here, Arsenal is slightly favored with odds 2.33, but it's difficult to bet Arsenal. Maybe we have to look at a very also tight game here, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, 2 quite fragile teams. Brighton, 3 straight draws, but really struggling for victories. They've only won 1 of their last 13 matches, and that's one of the reasons why they're down there at the wrong end of the table. And Arsenal, who produced that fantastic performance against Chelsea, and with a real second string starting 11. And this is a huge game for Arsenal, I think, because if they if they can build on that win against Chelsea and get another win on the board here, you'll think, okay, they're turning a corner, there's momentum. If they lose, which again with Arsenal this season is entirely conceivable, you'd think, well, actually that Chelsea result was just a one-off. It was a bit of a fluke, and perhaps they aren't ready to round that corner. So yeah, two teams short on confidence, two teams who really need a victory. And yeah, I think it'll be quite a close run thing. Neither Brighton nor Arsenal are especially solid defensively. So what one bet I was looking at here was both teams to score. You can get odds of 2.8 on that on Oddspedia, and I think that given both teams are a little bit vulnerable at the moment, and given that neither of them defend particularly well, I think that is I can see that happening. Both teams finding the net quite easily.
Fair enough. The next one we have Burnley, Sheffield United. When I was checking for good value bets in this 16th match day of the Premier League, the Burnley victory actually caught my eye. Odds 2.47 to beat Sheffield United, something that every single team in the Premier League is doing so far. Although we saw how Burnley, they lost against Leeds, but they were in a good run actually before 4 games without any defeat, and they need to win this game. It's a must win, I would say, only 2 points above relegation now. So probably you are with me, right, Tom, that this is a must win for Burnley, and the odds are quite appealing, I could say.
Yeah, very appealing. As you say, Burnley lost at Leeds in their most recent game, but they were very unfortunate, largely dominated the game, lost to a slightly dubious penalty, had what looked like a perfectly valid equaliser ruled out for what looked like a pretty non-existent foul by Ben Mee, so they could count themselves hard done by there. But what we've seen from Burnley over the last month and a bit is a return to what we're used to seeing from them under Sean Dyche. They've only lost 2 of their last 8 games. They're not letting goals in. They're picking up useful points here and there. And yes, they're only 2 points above the relegation zone, but they really look like they've turned a corner. Sheffield United, we know, are having this historically poor season. Gave Everton a good game at Bramall Lane in the Boxing Day fixtures, but they give everyone a good game. They just can't get a win. And I think given Burnley's form, I'd be minded to back Burnley. And perhaps you could look at something like Burnley to win to 0, which you can get at odds of 3.8 on Oddspedia. I don't think Burnley will win this at a canter, because you generally have to work reasonably hard to beat Sheffield United, but I think given how solid Burnley are at home, given how few goals they concede at home, how well they've been playing recently, and Sheffield United struggles, I think a Burnley win 1-0, 2-0 looks like a decent bet here.
Let's go for Burnley then. In the next fixture, we have Southampton, West Ham, 2 teams that are doing pretty well, I would say, overall in the season. They are now in the middle of the table, although none of them are in a very good run. Southampton, they drew against Fulham, and before they lost with Man City at home. And West Ham, they also drew in Boxing Day against Brighton, equalizing twice. They were always behind in the scoreboard, and now they are with 3 games without a victory. So both teams need to win. Of course, Southampton here is favorite, but this is one of the games that probably you also fancy this 1-1 result, or like a draw sounds a very reasonable outcome, I would say.
Yes, completely. 2 teams who are having good seasons, but who have hit the skids a bit in recent weeks. 3 games without a win in the league for Southampton, and 3 games without a win in the league for West Ham. Southampton look like they're going to be without Danny Ings, and we know how vital he is to the way they play, and they clearly missed him in that goalless draw at Fulham. Hard to call here. So I will sit on the fence and back a draw, which you can get at odds of around 3.6 on Oddspedia.
Yeah, this is the classic game that our friend Radek Vegas from Odds on Bundesliga would say, this is no bet, because it's very difficult, I think, to trust any of the teams or even go for the under or over market, very hard to call. Then next one is also tricky, I think. Relegation battle one, West Brom Leeds, because we saw how West Brom were able to draw against Liverpool. No one could expect that. They also drew on the road against Man City, so they were able to draw in the two most difficult venues in England. But then at home they lost the derby with Aston Villa. Maybe this is the first good chance for Big Sam to get his first victory, but they have Leeds in front of them, and they got a very important victory against Burnley at home, and Leeds are really favorites here. Tom, 2.10. I wouldn't trust also these odds. I think they are really low to back Bielsa's men.
Yeah, I mean, I think what West Brom did at Anfield demonstrated what we should now expect from West Brom under Sam Allardyce. And in fairness to Slaven Bilic, it was a similar performance to the one that they produced at Manchester City in Bilic's last game, which they also drew 1-1. They are going to, they now look like a very hard-working team, a team who are going to defend deep and not allow too much space. And I think Sam Allardyce will be extremely cautious when it comes to coming up against Marcelo Bielsa's Leeds. I mean, you couldn't get more of a clash of styles really between the arch pragmatist Allardyce and Marcelo Bielsa and his extremely proactive vision of football. But yeah, I think this will be a game for West Brom to sort of dig in, batten down the hatches. And we've seen actually from Leeds, you tend to assume that every Leeds game is going to feature loads of goals, but we didn't see that against Burnley in their most recent game. They were slightly fortunate to get all 3 points, and we've seen that on other occasions when they won away at Everton not too long ago, again a 1-0 win, and keeping things tight at one end. So yes, Bielsa does expect his team to attack relentlessly, but we have seen from Leeds that they are capable of playing slightly more cautiously, and I think given what a difficult nut to crack West Brom were at Anfield, I think this will be quite a cagey game. And one market that caught my eye was the goals market. You can get odds of 3.95 on there being 2 goals or fewer, and I think just given the fact that West Brom look to be tightening up under Sam Allardyce, and given that Leeds were stung a little bit, I think, by the criticism they got after that 6-2 defeat at Manchester United, I think this will be a closer one than people perhaps think.
And those are very good odds then. If we go for under 2 goals, you actually, if I'm not wrong, you predicted well that also the Leeds Burnley, it would be a very cagey one. So let's expect the same for West Brom Leeds. Let's see what happened in Man United Wolverhampton. For sure, Wolves would love to keep the game cagey, especially because they still are missing Raúl Jiménez and they have a lot of problems scoring. They drew against Tottenham. That's a very good result, especially because the goal came in the very last moment of the game. But in the last 5 games, they only beat Chelsea, actually. And we see how Man United was this close to beat Leicester, always with Bruno Fernandes as the machine of the team. Here the odds for Man U is 1.62. Not sure if it's good enough actually to take them, because Wolves is always a dangerous team.
Yeah, I mean, Wolves very solid, struggle to score goals, and we saw that again against Tottenham. Okay, they managed to get the equaliser right at the end, but they are still struggling to adapt to life without Raúl Jiménez. And I think that although their defensive solidity is enough, or was enough for them to pick up a point against Tottenham, I think that Man United's firepower gives them the edge here. It is very difficult to keep United at bay. We've seen that throughout this season. They're 8 league games without defeat, and they've scored a decent amount of goals during that period. So I suspect that United's firepower will be enough for them to beat Wolves here. I mean, it's never easy against Wolves, but I think just that the lack of a goal-scoring figurehead makes them much less threatening. That they might make you work hard for victory, but the chances of them catching you out at the other end are much slimmer than they were before Jimenez's injury, and we saw that in the game against Spurs with Fabio Silva, who looks like a fantastic player, but spurning a couple of the opportunities that came his way. So yeah, I don't think it'll be plain sailing, but I think United's superior firepower will make the difference in this one, and I think they'll get the 3 points.
And do you see Man United like a title contender now?
Hard to say. I mean, every time you watch United, you're reminded of their flaws. They let too many goals in. They very often let the first goal in and are obliged to come from behind. Excuse me. There isn't a huge degree of cohesion to the way they play. And I think in any normal season, they would have been left behind by the bigger teams. But because this is such an unusual season, because teams are already looking tired and leggy, if United win their game in hand, they're 2 points behind Liverpool, who no one would have been able to predict that. So I still think that there's a gap between Liverpool and the rest this season. But if United continue their current form, then yeah, I think you have to consider them as title contenders.
Okay, let's see what happens there with Man United. We were saying maybe also 1 month ago that Tottenham could be a title contender, but since then, 4 games without a victory. We just said how they drew against Wolverhampton, 2 defeats, 2 draws, and now they face at home Fulham. And Fulham is a drawing team also. The last 4 games are all draws. They are still in the relegation zone, but they keep the games very tight. The only defeat in the last 6 games was only against Man City. But I guess Mourinho's men need to win this one, and the odds are very low for Tottenham, 1.58, or I don't know if you see any option for Fulham, probably yes, to get a point here.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, Spurs should win this. If the Spurs from the early weeks of the season shows up with all that firepower, they'd blow Fulham out of the water. But Spurs' form of late has been disappointing. As you say, 4 games without a win. And what we've often seen from Spurs is either them going ahead but not building on it, which we saw in the game at Wolves, which we saw in the game at Crystal Palace, or just being outplayed, as we saw in their most recent home game, losing 2-0 at home to Leicester. We've not really seen the Spurs of the season's first couple of months, where Kane and Son looked like they were each going to score a couple of goals in every match. And at the same time, they're coming up against a Fulham team who have clearly turned a corner. A very difficult team to beat now, as Liverpool found out recently, as Southampton found out most recently in the Boxing Day weekend fixtures. So yeah, I still think Spurs will have enough to win this one, but I think it'll be a close one. So maybe something like Spurs to win 2-0. You can get odds of 2.55 on that. But at the same time, and this is me sitting on the fence again, you look at the dynamics of the 2 teams, Spurs, who are struggling, Fulham, who are just picking up points and have become very hard to break down. It wouldn't be a huge surprise if Fulham was to pick up a point here either.
Exactly. So be careful, the ones who want to back Tottenham, because the odds are not very good. We won't be very surprised if Fulham picks a point from White Hart Lane. The last game we have on Wednesday, the last game of the year in the Premier League, if I'm not wrong, is Newcastle Liverpool. We saw how Liverpool drew against West Brom. Everyone was very surprised about it. And Newcastle, they lost with Man City. Nothing really strange out of it, but now they are 3 games without a victory. And here again, the odds for the Liverpool victory is very low, 1.32. But actually, in the last 5 meetings between these 2 teams, Liverpool won every single game. So, well, you will tell me, Tom, where do you find a good bet here?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to back Liverpool here. I mean, yes, they were caught out by West Brom, but I don't think Newcastle are capable of defending with the same sort of discipline for long periods as West Brom did at Anfield. And I think Liverpool will be desperate to win this one, to finish the year on a positive note. Just to make sure they finish the year on top of the pile. And yeah, so I think Liverpool will win this one. Newcastle are a team who do allow their opponents lots of space, who do face a lot of shots per game, and I think given Liverpool's firepower, that's probably a recipe for a relatively comfortable victory for Jurgen Klopp's men. In terms of bets, maybe something like Liverpool winning both halves. You can get odds of 2.80 on Oddspedia on that. And, okay, Liverpool are going into this game off the back of that disappointment against West Brom, but we have seen in recent weeks what they're capable of doing to teams when things click. The 7-0 at Crystal Palace, the 4-0 win at home to Wolves, another comfortable win at home to Leicester not too long ago. So I think if that Liverpool turn up, and I think after the disappointment of West Brom they will rather, I think they'll win this one without too many problems.
All right, then let's go for Liverpool in the last match of the year. The Premier League is coming back on the 1st of January. The only thing missing, Tom, is your ACCA for these last games of the 2020.
Okay, I'm going to cover my bases here by saying that I think this is a very difficult week to predict results. I think there's going to be a lot of rotation because of the tiny gap between matches, and I think we could see some surprising scorelines. But having said that, my ACCA selection is Leicester, Burnley, Tottenham and Liverpool.
And this pays 8.93. Exactly, no gap between the last match day and the 16th one. But we've covered everything. And I just want to thank you, Tom, for being with us during this Christmas period.
My pleasure.
As you saw, this is gonna be a very tricky match day. There is no rest for the teams, but these are Tom's prediction. I want also to listen to yours, so please leave a comment below in the comment section, and you will also have the chance to win a £10 free bet with Novibet. Just write a comment to participate in the draw. And do not forget to click on the like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to our channel and click on the bell to get all the notifications. Remember also that you can listen to all our videos in our podcast. We will be back with more action about the Premier League before the 1st of January. Goodbye.